Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning into the Liberty Report. With me today is Daniel McAdams, our co-host. Daniel, good to see you.
How are you this morning, Dr. Paul?
Good. Still counting votes.
Yes, we have some here. No, we don't.
Yeah, we want to talk about that. There might be a few discrepancies there that they're not reporting on. Well, there's a few discrepancies they're not reporting on, but there's a lot of shenanigans going on. So we do need to talk about this. It's amazing, though, that the opposition, if they're doing something wrong, you can identify it because they blame the other side for doing it. So if the Democrats think that they are cheating and they're not counting the votes, then of course they turn around and say the Republicans won't count the votes. Well, that's all the trickery that's going on, and somebody now feels like there's some discrepancy, and I think there's overwhelming evidence that some type of discrepancy is going on, and it's a shame that they're able to turn around and say, oh, they're just poor losers type of thing, and that's a lot of reasons why people just want to back off. So this is unusual. You know, I think that I remember the election 1960, I guess it was, with Kennedy and Nixon. I think at the time, just reading the news, most people were convinced that, you know, Chicago and a few other places cheated like crazy, and Nixon, you know, his participation in the system was, I'm not taking this on, I'll be back another day.
Yeah.
And that worked for him. I think we live in a different era. Things have gotten so bad. And I think a Donald Trump type president is treating this a little bit differently than a Richard Nixon would. Yeah. And he'd like to get to the bottom of it. You know, what's really amazing is this mobocracy, and you know how democracy leads to the mob rule. It's ironic in the sense that the reason that we have the dictatorship of the majority is to help the minority. You don't want to you don't want the minority to be kept out. So what we have laws that protect the minority. You protect everybody equally. But they come along and the minority. How can you have the majority becoming the body that has to protect the minority, and of course that's mobocracy, and it's dictate. All you have to do is have a majority vote. You can do anything you want.
Yeah.
So it is a dictatorship, and de Tocqueville was so good at describing this, and he calls it a dictatorship. The founders hated democracy. They thought it was a terrible system of government just to have a majority vote. So guess what happens under these conditions? All the effort goes to who has 51%. Yeah. So all the money goes in. The money for lobbying, the money for education, the money in the media is everything to get the majority, because the majority is the dictator. And but it makes it sound good. It isn't one person becoming the dictator. It's the majority, and nobody can be against the majority, except maybe a libertarian here and there, because of course we think rights are individual and they're not. They're not collective, and you know the majority are not it's not capable of really defining what an individual right is. They're defining what it's like to be in the majority and how they can dictate from it.
Yeah, and you know the latest on the election is pretty troubling. You know, and again, preface it by saying we don't know the answers. We don't know exactly what's happening. We can raise some red flags. You know, and as a former election observer, I can raise some huge red flags about what's happening. But here's the latest, and this isn't my idea. Someone else wrote this, but I think it makes a lot of sense, and it should cause us to scratch our heads. Florida managed to count 10.5 million votes within 24 hours. Georgia can't even count 4.8 million, less than half of that in 2 days. Why is that? And the other thing that's very important, I think, is every state that is registering a delay, every state that stopped counting, every state that refuses to report the results, in every one of those states, Biden has gained significant numbers of votes. Maybe that is just a pure coincidence, but there are certainly some red flags. If I saw that anywhere else, I would raise some red flags. But here's kind of breaking news, and this happened in Pennsylvania just before we came on. A judge there has overruled a previous ruling allowing, and this is effective immediately, requiring that all candidates, watchers, or candidate representatives be permitted to be present for the canvassing process. Essentially what they did is they locked the doors and said no observers can watch the count. And that is textbook example of something you would do when you want to cheat. Maybe they weren't cheating, but the fact is, if you have nothing to hide, especially in a count, you should certainly not. Accredited observers should always be allowed. And I'll just do Pennsylvania really quick and then throw it back to you. Let's look at this first link. And here's why people are concerned about Pennsylvania. Now, Trump had a pretty solid lead before they stopped voting. Remember, we talked about this guy yesterday, Josh Shapiro. He's the Attorney General. He is the guy who is going to run the elections and certify them. Remember what he said before, even before the vote. If all votes are added up, Trump's going to lose. Well, you could take that two ways. A, is he just expressing his partisan view, in which case he shouldn't be doing that as a person writing, the votes, tallying the votes. Or does he know something beforehand? If all the votes, meaning all those boxes, are counted, we know Trump's going to lose. Whatever the case, it's very suspicious. And here's the second thing, and I'll throw it back to you, Dr. Paul. Let's look at that second one. This is, I think this is Nate Silver's website, 538. This is something that, again, we don't know, but it raises a red flag. This is yesterday. 2 more batches of Pennsylvania votes were reported. They found 2 more batches of votes. 23,277 votes in Philadelphia, all for Biden. 5,300 votes in Luzerne County, nearly 4,000 of which were for Biden. How is it possible that you simply have a few boxes of ballots and they are 100% for one candidate? I don't see how that's possible.
I think it was Wisconsin where they checked to find out who was voting, and I think it turned out that 88% of the registered, or the people who could vote, voted. And I got to thinking, that's good. That's good public relations, good citizens out there voting. But then it made me think, it still isn't up to what a communist country can do. They get 100% of their people voting. So you have to be suspicious of an 88% turnout, and then a shift in the vote, which was a little suspicious too.
Yeah, I think it was actually 91%. We talked.
Oh,
about
it went up more.
91% turnout. Everyone, and then some, went out to vote. Let's look at a couple more. And this is another red flag again. This is a real problem. This is Detroit. I mean, talk about taking extraordinary measures. Let's look at this next clip if we can. Detroit, absentee ballot counting chaos as workers block the windows and bar observers. Let's do the next one. This is also Detroit. Same story. Windows covered at ballot counting center. Why do they need to cover the windows if all they're doing is sitting there counting the votes? And there's actually, I don't have the clip, but I saw a clip on Twitter earlier that was posted. I think Donald Trump Jr. reposted it. They showed a guy counting ballots. There was a video of it, a hidden video of him counting ballots. And they showed him, he pointed his middle finger at one, bunched it up and threw it in the trash. Whatever the case, if it was Biden or Trump, that's certainly not appropriate behavior for someone counting the ballots. And here's one other thing I'll throw at you, Dr. Paul. This is Barack Obama's speechwriter. He tweeted this yesterday. Let's take a look at this. Barack Obama's speechwriter when he was president. Anyone in Georgia? Team Joe needs people to go door to door, helping voters fix their mail-in ballots so they count. Sign up. And look at the bottom, November 4th. The election is over. What on earth are you doing going door to door, helping voters fix their ballots for? And this isn't just some guy out of the street. This is Barack Obama's former speechwriter.
It was that change in the rule, and it was done by the court, I guess the Supreme Court, where they changed the rules where voting didn't end with the voting day.
Yeah.
It was open-ended. Another week or so, and a lot of time to change the numbers around. But that doesn't make any sense, and you wonder why people go along with this and tolerate it. It's always in the name of democracy. We have to do this for democracy and allow everybody to to participate. But the minority never really gets protected. I mean, they just get milked. I don't think. You take these problems going on. Is it both sides have filed a lot of suits, but nobody talks about the number of suits where there was a distortion and a sort of a disintegration of some of the voting laws. And there are a lot of cases that have been filed, and yet right now. Fortunately, I think the strategy is when it's so obvious that we need to know more questions, that it's sort of, it's only a Stalin tactic. No, maybe they're trying to see that and make sure every vote is proper, every vote is illegal.
Yeah.
And that dead people weren't voting, but they never do it that way. So they think this is something you wonder why. They would do this, such chaos, it would be over now and the Democrats could win if it was an honest election. But I think the chaos, I think Biden, for the true revolutionaries, I think Biden and Trump are irrelevant other than suppressing them or using them to cause chaos. Chaos is the goal of what's going on. And these court cases, it just leads up to it. The other day I thought, well, there's going to be a fight and this could go all the way to, using the Congress, but who knows what the country will be like if Congress has to vote, this sort of thing. So it's, but the chaos is a victory for the radical Marxists who want chaos because they will say, and there's stories already. Look how terrible this system is. The bad guys are speaking out in public about, see, I told you this freedom business is horrible, and look at American exceptionalism, how bad it is, and they're making good use of this. So chaos is their goal, and they've been doing a pretty good job. And if you add that up for the various things like how they handled coronavirus, so they have the coronavirus to deal with, and they have the election to deal with. And there's a lot of monkey wrenches being thrown in there, and chaos is, becoming epidemic.
Yeah, I think one thing that everyone should agree about is that this massive mail-in voting has been a complete disaster. And it doesn't matter I think if you're an honest person, it doesn't matter if you like Biden or not, because this is the first time, with the exception of the year 2000, the first time in over 100 years that we didn't know the next morning who won. And it's all because of the mass mail-in ballot. But what's interesting, because we talked about this yesterday too, the stage was set for this chaos, as you point out, which is very helpful to certain people, especially those who want to pull off coups. The stage was set because of what we consider the artificially hyped corona hysteria. That got everyone hysterical. Then they forced everyone to put on a face mask and told them it's not safe to go outside. Don't you dare go outside. We can't vote. And if you wanted people to vote in person, you basically just wanted to kill every American who went to vote. So that set the stage for the chaos that followed. The chaos that follows now, you have to ask, who benefits? Cui bono? Right now, in every place where there's chaos, in every polling area where there's chaos, Biden continues to benefit, continues to get tens of thousands of votes without a single vote for Trump. So it's very clear what was being set up as this was happening.
In one way, we put up with so much surveillance by the government, constantly increasing, and you accept a little bit, the country's accepted it, but it keeps expanding, and that it's notorious now. But when it comes to these ballots, the government is in total control of them, going to their houses and helping them fill them out, and not allowed to really count them. And and you do hear the stories, and I know it's true. I mean, the numbers. How can they all of a sudden find 150 ballots and they all voted for Biden?
Yeah.
It makes no sense. You'd think that would be a justified complaint and a concern, and looking into it. But they say that the suspicions that many of us have, and there has been a lot of corruption and a lot of fraud going on, and if you had an honest investigation, you could identify it. But see, the people now, including myself, we get so cynical that even if you did bring the proof, sort of like Russiagate. They found a lot of things, but it didn't matter.
Yeah.
But I think that we have to do it, and it has to be challenged. But the odds of anybody going to prison over this, or getting even a fine, or kicked out of the counting booth to do this, it's nil. So that's why people are really disgusted. The people are going to be more disgusted than ever, but it is going to turn into anger too, and I think that's what's coming.
Well, the chance of anyone going to prison is pretty low if Biden wins, and I'm thinking of Biden and his son, so that may be an incentive. But you combine this incredible 100% vote for Biden in several places that we've talked about, combine that with at the same time saying nobody can watch us count these, those two together raise a huge red flag. If it's okay, maybe everyone voted for Biden in this one area. That's possible, but then open it up and let everyone see it, or at least let accredited observers see it. But I'm going to talk a little bit about Arizona here, because Arizona is key. It's expected to go Trump. It should have gone Trump already. The outstanding 400,000 ballots are in areas that are, I think, 60 to 70% Trump voters in the past, and he has about 50, 60, 70,000 votes to make up. But what happened on election night? We talked about it before, but Fox News calling Arizona when virtually all of the Trump voters had not been counted yet is what set off this whole chain of events. We were watching it. Everything was proceeding normal. And then all of a sudden, Fox switches to this guy in the back room saying, we're going to call Arizona for Biden. And even the Fox hosts were, really? This is crazy. Well, Fox partnered with AP, the Associated Press, to work on this. AP is viciously, virulently anti-Trump. And I just wonder if they slipped some operatives in there to do some dirty work. But let's look at this next picture from Arizona. And this is a couple of interesting things on Arizona. This is Representative Ghoshar, who I think is a dentist, if I'm not mistaken. He's a doctor. He's been denied entry into the election center in Maricopa County. Let's look at another one. And this is, we talked about mob. These are people that are angry. They feel like their votes are being stolen. These are people in Phoenix demanding that the votes be counted properly and in a transparent manner. People are getting frustrated. I think there are some riots going on in Portland, but I guess when aren't there riots going on in Portland? And one final thing, the Attorney General of Arizona, this is important. He just issued this morning, I think. He has written a letter opening an investigation into what they're calling Sharpie Gate, which is in certain areas, people were given Sharpies to mark their ballot. Yeah. And those Sharpies, apparently, from what they claim, bled through to the next page and caused the entire vote to be invalidated. And what the Attorney General is requesting is which areas were these Sharpies issued? Is there some kind of political bias? Were they issued only in Trump areas? They don't know, but it's important. This takes it out of the realm of conspiracy theory, which is what the mainstream media would like to call it, and more into the realm of reality if the Attorney General said, we need to look into this. This is worth looking into.
Well, there was one place where there was an election this go around that we should look at carefully and maybe think about modeling the whole country after. Because there was one place, every single person voted for Biden. Yeah. And they did it on a paper ballot, and they made their paper ballots available. Dixfield Notch.
Yeah.
And they're done in 5 minutes. Yes. They have it done, and it's a great tradition. And there's been times when they voted for Republicans, and there was one time when there were several libertarians there, but I think there was a total vote of 5. So, but anyway, it's a good lesson. I think that they have a couple things going for themselves. Transparency is there, and nobody cheats in Dixfield Notch.
It's not hard to count ballots. It's not rocket science. I've been to many election counts. It's not hard to do. I'm going to go through a couple of quickies because I know we don't have a ton of time here, but I'll just throw a couple of things out, Dr. Paul, that you might find interesting. This is from CNBC Politics. This is insane. North Carolina won't update its total vote count until November 12th. The state is crucial for President Trump's path to victory. Here are the numbers. Trump holding on as of yesterday to a narrow lead, and they just simply stop updating the count. It's unheard of. Nobody there can count? It's insane. Let's look at the next one. I'm just going to do this one and I think one after it. This is from Kimberly Strassel. This is actually, you were correct, Dr. Paul. I was wrong. Wisconsin has 3.6 million active registered voters. They counted 3.288 million votes. That's a bit unbelievable. 89% turnout in Wisconsin. And she says, I'm legitimately confused by this. I checked, and the top number is indeed Wisconsin's registered number as of November 1st. The bottom is approximately what's been counted. This is a not feasible 89% turnout. That is pretty insane. And let's look at one other one, Dr. Paul. And again, we don't know what's happening, but we know something smells fishy. Breaking, and this has been verified, by the way. This isn't just some guy tweeting. Over 500 mail-in ballots for Trump found dumped at Marysville Precinct in Michigan. Update. The clerk has told county Republican officials that the ballots were simply misplaced and accidentally not included in the results. This indicates either complete incompetence and negligent behavior or extreme voter fraud. I would have to second his emotion when it comes to that, because it's just simply not acceptable. Oh, we misplaced those. We couldn't find them.
Right. Well, you know, the whole issue of big government leading to authoritarianism, and we have big government leading to empires, and out of control power over the people. And I think we're there. But it becomes more fragile because there will be a growing resistance movement, and you can't allow that to exist. In this day and age, the resistance is developing on the internet and social media, so that has to be taken care of, and they have a way to cancel that out so that the anti-people, the people who want to get rid of this nonsense, they don't get their message out. But when the governments get too big, they have to resort, they can't resort to the trust and the understanding of people wanting to get along, people having local government and having responsibility, their responsibility for their lives, their responsibility for their well-being, their medical care, and their education. It's totally devoid of that, and it's all delivered to the government. But because it becomes very fragile financially and morally, it becomes corrupting, that the government has to rely on lying.
Yeah.
Have there been any lies told in this campaign yet, or in Corona? Any lies? Yeah. Cheating? Has there been any cheating on the numbers? And do they ever steal? They steal incessantly, and that's where the way the government is the biggest theft. Yeah. Remember, don't steal. The government hates competition.
Exactly.
You know, and then the killing.
Yeah.
Then when you think of the assassinations that have occurred and what we have done as a government, and people with victimless crimes actually dying terrible deaths in prisons, I mean, we are not easily definable as an exceptionally great nation, but I think what we're seeing and witnessing, whether it's the coronavirus or whether it's the election, we're seeing the end stages of a system that was tried. The founder said, don't do it. We did it anyway, and we gave the dictatorial powers to the majority. And therefore, you only had to manipulate the majority in order to get people in there that would oppress the minority. All done in the name of preserving the good happiness of the minority. You know, it's all geared to say that we care about the minority, and we're going to protect them. We're going to give them free stuff. And look at what they get. They get all the tragedy. The middle class gets wiped out. And here we're facing several crises that's going on. And I just think that what we're talking about here is sort of just another example of the end stages of a system that at one time was a lot better. And if we want to keep it or improve upon it, we have to change our attitude about what the role of government ought to be in a free society.
Yeah, and we talked before the show a little bit about how, you know, I think it's a bad scenario because I'm not a fan of Biden. I think he's an authoritarian beyond authoritarianism. But if Biden is elected, the office will be delegitimized. He's not going to sit there in the West Wing and feel like he's really the president because of the way he was able to gain that seat if it happens. And that's not a terrible thing from a libertarian perspective.
Right.
You know, and the gridlock, as you mentioned yesterday, is a good thing. I wanted to mention one other thing, and this veers toward the realm of conspiracy, but I think it's worth thinking about. I think we talked about it on the show, and I know we've run some things on ronpaulinstitute.org website, but the Transition Integrity Project. This is a group of never-Trumpers who got together over the summer to war game 4 different scenarios where Trump would refuse to leave office after losing the vote. And it's very interesting because I was just revisiting some of what they came up with. But it's a little eerie because one of those scenarios is where the vote in a state like Michigan had to be stopped because of the way the count was going, which is exactly what they're trying to do now. And the other is where a Fox News-like TV outlet called one state extremely early, inexplicably early, and caused chaos, which is what's happened here. So that really raises some big questions.
Boy, that's for sure. You know, let me go ahead. Do you have?
I was going to close with one Corona
go
thing.
Go ahead, do that. Yeah.
Okay.
We have time.
I just want to, because we got to go back to our old Corona. We'll have to say it one more time because no matter what happens, we're not going to hear about it again after this. Let's put up this. Let's put up this next clip, if you will. This is from Scott Atlas. More pure data on the U.S., and this is from New York Times Information. The number of counties in the United States reporting 10-plus COVID deaths per day. This is from March through the latest available. And look at how that has declined. And here, the next one is a close-up on that graph. Let's have a look at that. Look at what's happened. These are the numbers of counties reporting more than 10 deaths a day. It's down to 5 in the whole United States. A little closer to home, you brought this to me, and I'm going to try to read it without my glasses. This is our local newspaper. They've just decided to change the criteria for calling something COVID yet again. And surprise, surprise, the number of cases is supposed to go up. But this is interesting. They're citing now 92 new cases in Brazoria County. But this is what we've talked about all along. The 92 cases are the most in the daily count since September, but only about 1/3 were recently confirmed infections. 33 were more than 2 weeks old. They are again harvesting old deaths to load onto the county to make it look bad so we don't dare uncover our faces. Some of us have never covered them, but of course, to keep people terrified. It is criminal.
Are you going back to one of their city council meetings?
I might have to go back.
Or maybe they're going to have, maybe the supporters out there are going to want you to run for office or something.
Yeah, I can spend my time buying trash trucks and tractors. No thanks.
There you go. Okay. I want to start off by first saying that we really appreciate our audience and our viewers. The numbers are growing. And, you know, I try never to take credit when I really don't think I've earned a lot of credit. And I'll tell you what, Daniel, I think, does a great job. And also, the issues are very, very important. And I think we're touching on it. And our viewers must be passing the message around because Twitter and other companies aren't doing it for us. But we had, I think, one of the best days, if not the best day, on the number of people who viewed our program yesterday. So we do appreciate your support because that's been our goal, is to spread a message and try our best to analyze what's going on. And I've already talked about this issue, which is important to me. That's the majority versus the minority, and the danger of the majority, the dictatorship of the majority, and how dangerous it is. And the whole principle of that is if the majority gets along and they have the power and the clout, they can dictate what a right is. And that's preposterous. But that's the way Washington works. They're always defining what rights are. Rights come to us naturally. It's a matter of trying to understand what the right to your life is all about, and the right to liberty, and the right to lead your life as you so choose, and the right to keep what you earn. That doesn't come from the government. But this whole principle of government doing it, and then, well, it gets fuzzy because there's too many demands for right. Oh, we'll sort it out. We'll have a vote on it. The majority is always right. Well, the founders decided the majority was essentially never right, and they didn't have the right to lord it over the minorities. But the real irony here is the people who profess to really care about the minorities, the people suffering, the poor people, and what we need are just smarter people in the majority running the government. And I say that's been tested now for a couple hundred years. It's getting worse, and it's led up to where we are today, fighting the battle of how do we settle the dispute over the election, and how do we settle this dispute on how to take care of a people who have a severely bad cold, and having the government try to run our lives and be in charge in our total medical care. So we haven't gone in the right directions in these last several years, but there's nothing wrong, because it's the only thing we can do, is define what it's like and should be the way it is in a free society. That is when the government, stays out of the way, recognizing rights are natural, and if the government is going to be involved, they should be involved in protecting abuse of somebody's rights by other people instead of becoming the chief abuser of rights. And that's the way I see government so much now. And we have severe problems, so we have commissions. We have commissions. Set up a commission for this. Set up a commission for this. And the commissions have always, in my lifetime, been to cover up the guilty, the people who caused the trouble, and blame somebody else. So we don't need new commissions, and we don't need just new people and smarter bureaucrats that will, provide better government. We need just a lot less government and a lot more self-reliance and responsibility for oneself. That will solve a lot of our problems. Won't be perfect, but I'll tell you what, we're moving in the wrong direction right now because we're becoming less perfect and we have not enough concern about what liberty should be all about. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report. Please come back soon.